We're gonna try out the new Charlotte Tilbury concealer today. I'm sure you probably guessed I was gonna try this out. I am a huge Charlotte Tilbury fan, so I cannot wait to try the new Beautiful Skin Radiant Concealer. I have tried almost everything at this point from Charlotte Tilbury, and I knew I had to order this when I saw that it was out. This does retail for $33. It comes in 30 shades, and I got the shade 4 Fair. As with most Charlotte Tilbury products, they give you a lot of claims with this concealer, some very interesting ones that I will share with you that you've probably heard. It says it's like shapewear for your face and your eyes. It is the power of concealer and the power of an eye cream all in one. Also claims that dark circles appear reduced by 40%, which is interesting. And the skin looks smoother and more radiant by 43%. Those are some pretty bold claims. It also says 93% agree the product visibly reduces the look of dark circles over time. And it's supposed to be sweat proof, humidity proof, waterproof, and 16-hour wear time. I have tried Charlotte Tilbury's Magic Vanish Concealer. I don't own it anymore, but I owned it a few years ago. I was not a huge fan of that concealer. It was the one in the applicator with the sponge on the end, which I know a lot of people didn't love. Was very messy, and I didn't love the concealer itself either. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't a favorite for me. So I have been waiting for a new Charlotte Tilbury concealer. I am kind of apprehensive about this one because I am also not a huge fan of the Beautiful Skin foundation that came out a few months ago. I wanted to love it so bad, but I found that it did not wear very well on me. It was very, very, very radiant, like to the point where, I mean, it just didn't look good at all. It didn't wear well at all, and it just didn't look flattering on my skin. It kind of sat in my pores, and I just didn't love it. So I'm a little apprehensive about this one, but I have high hopes. So like I said, I have the shade number 4, which I will swatch for you. So this is, I do like the packaging. It's very basic, but I do like it. So it looks similar to the Beautiful Skin foundation from her. I kind of guessed on the shade. I wasn't really sure, but I think this will be okay. It might be a little bit light. I thought about going with 4.5 instead, but I went with shade 4. It feels very, very creamy, much like an eye cream, so I can kind of see where they're coming from with that claim. Try to blend out the swatch a little. So that is it there. We'll say it's a bit thicker feeling than I was thinking it was going to be. I was thinking it was going to be more of like a watery texture, but it's not thick, but it's definitely not thin, as thin as I was thinking. So there it is, kind of blended out. I did want to share a few swatches of other concealers in my collection, swatched next to the new Charlotte Tilbury one, just in case you're having trouble picking a shade. I honestly had a little trouble picking a shade. So there is shade 4 in Charlotte Tilbury. Then I have the Dior Backstage Concealer in 2 Neutral. So already to me, the Dior looks a little bit warmer than the Charlotte Tilbury. Next we have the new Sephora Collection Concealer in 17.5 Neutral, which is, I would say, a little more neutral than the Dior, but not quite as. The Charlotte Tilbury looks almost a little bit pinky. And then one more really good match for me typically is Cedar from Hourglass. which is here. So yeah, the Charlotte Tilbury is very pinky compared to the other ones, which could be a good thing. I typically like something peachy under the eyes. If you are familiar with my channel, you'll know that I always use color corrector, and I actually do own the Charlotte Tilbury color corrector. So what I'm gonna do for application today is I typically use a color corrector, like you probably know if you're familiar with my videos, and I actually love the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Vanish color corrector. So I am gonna use this on one eye today, and then I'll do one eye with just the concealer so you can see the difference. First, we'll do the eye with color corrector. This is the shade number 2 in the Charlotte color corrector. And let's see, I guess we'll do the left eye with color corrector. So I mainly focus it in this inner portion. And then my under eyes are I feel like they're pretty dark today, so I'm gonna put a little bit on this outer corner as well. I'm gonna tap in the color corrector with a Smashbox blurring concealer brush. Okay, now that we've applied a little bit of color corrector, we will go in with the concealer on the left eye. So I'm gonna start here. I'm actually just gonna start with that. Sometimes I do put some on this outer corner, but I kind of want to see how far that goes. I'm gonna use a clean brush. This one is the Hourglass concealer brush, and just slowly start tapping that in. Okay, so it blended very, very quickly. Hopefully you can see. So there we have it. So this claims to be a medium coverage concealer. Looks very good. We do have the color corrector on underneath. Let me grab a mirror up close so I can see. Looks pretty good, you guys, so far. It definitely has a little bit of luminosity to it, but I don't think it's super, super dewy. I actually thought it would be dewier, to be honest. Yeah, looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and add just like a tiny, tiny bit on the outer part of my eye. I'm just gonna put just a little bit out there. I will say I'm assuming the shades run pretty light just based on this shade itself, because this is shade 4, and I feel like, I mean, it's fine for me for sure, but it's definitely not dark in the least bit. It's pretty light, so keep that in mind if you're wanting to buy this. You might be like a shade darker maybe than you're thinking. Okay, looks pretty good as of right now. I would agree with medium coverage. I'll be curious to see how it is on this eye with no corrector underneath, because I feel like it's definitely not a full coverage on this eye with the color corrector under it. So I'm curious to see how it does with nothing underneath on this side, but overall it looks pretty dewy, but not super, super dewy. I feel like the trick with this one is going to be how it kind of sets down and wears throughout the day, because that's the issue I had with the foundation. So let's move on to the other eye, and we will just go right in with the concealer. I'll go ahead and put just a little bit on the outer corner, and we will just tap that in. So there it is on that eye with no corrector underneath. It looks better than I was thinking it was going to without corrector. It looks pretty good without corrector underneath, to be honest. I think it's probably helping that this shade leans a little bit on the pinky peach side, but it looks better than I would assume. I will also say that I typically have more darkness on my left eye than I do on my right eye, so that's kind of why I chose to put the corrector over here. It's laying really, really well under my eyes right now, like no weird creasing or anything like that. So I do want to add just like a tiny, tiny bit more and see how buildable it is. I'm not gonna go like overboard, but I just want to add like a little dot. Okay, I feel like maybe we got just a slight bit more coverage, but I don't think it's anything dramatic. But I'm pretty impressed with how this looks. I hope it continues to look like this. I am not going to use any powder or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my makeup and then we'll come back and see what it's looking like. But so far, pretty impressed with this. Fingers crossed it doesn't do anything weird. So I'll see you in a few seconds. All right, you guys, so I finished the rest of my makeup and I wanted to show you what the concealer is looking like, and it still looks good. It still looks good, you guys. It is really, really pretty under the eyes. I will say one thing I did want to note is I don't know how much you can see, but it is just the smallest, tiniest bit creasing kind of in these outer areas, just slightly, and you would have to look really, really close to be able to see, but it's very, very minimal. Other than that, it looks really good. I mean, it definitely still looks, I would say the finish still looks kind of radiant, kind of like a natural radiant finish. So it definitely is not something that sets down to like a matte finish or anything. I think it's definitely going to keep that luminosity, which if it keeps looking like this, I'm fine with. But what I do think I'm going to do just for demonstration purposes is I'm going to use a little bit of my Pat McGrath under eye powder, and I'm just going to set one eye. So I think I'm going to set the side we put corrector on and not on the side we did not. So I just went under my eyes with my sponge just to make sure I get any excess product. And now I'm going to go in with this powder, and I'm just using a small eyeshadow brush. This is actually shade Light in the Pat McGrath powder. And I usually just kind of focus my powder like right in this inner corner. There we go. I'm just going to do a little bit and then we'll leave this side with nothing. I am much more impressed with this initially than I was with the foundation, the Beautiful Skin foundation. The trick will be if it wears well, because that was my main issue with the foundation. It just did not wear well on me at all. I zoomed you in, so hopefully you can see a bit better. So this side has a little bit of powder and the corrector. This side has just the concealer. They both look pretty good. I'm very excited about the side with no corrector, because normally I really dislike my concealer if I don't put corrector underneath, but this one looks pretty good. I wouldn't say it's like a full coverage. I definitely agree with the medium coverage claim, but overall, I'm pretty impressed with this. So I am gonna leave this makeup on all day, and I'll come back and do one, maybe two check-ins and show you what we are looking like. But so far, I'm very impressed, but I will see you in a few hours. All right, you guys, so it's been about 4 hours now since the first clips where I applied them, and I'm just standing in front of a window right now, and this is what the concealer is looking like. So this is my right, so this is the eye with no corrector and no powder. This one has corrector and powder. And honestly, I'm pretty impressed with both sides. I do think the side with the powder and the corrector looks just a little bit better than the side without either of those things. It just looks a little bit smoother under the eyes, but this side does not look bad. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of like creasing happening right here, but overall it looks pretty good. And I'm pretty impressed at this point. So I'm going to keep this on for a few more hours and then I'll be back and we'll close out the video. All right, it's the end of the day and I'm about to take my makeup off, but I wanted to close out the video, kind of give you my thoughts on this concealer so far. I still really like it. I think it looks really good. My main two observations from just wearing it today is I feel like we've lost a little bit of coverage throughout the day. Like, not that it's totally worn off. It just looks, I guess it looks a little faded maybe. And I do think both sides look faded. The side with powder and without powder both look that way to me. But overall, the way they look and the way they wore under my eyes look really good on both sides, powder and without powder. I think this is mainly going to be more of a like natural makeup kind of concealer for me. I don't think I would reach for this when I'm doing like a full face of makeup. I think it's a pretty natural looking concealer, which is typical. It's medium coverage, more radiant, natural finish. So that's typically the kind of concealer I would go for just on an everyday basis anyway. But I'm pretty impressed with it, you guys. I'm not like blown away like you have to go out and buy this. This is the best thing I've ever tried, but I definitely really like it and I'm excited to continue wearing it a little bit more. I mean, overall, I feel like it looks pretty good and it's been on for about 8 hours at this point. I will obviously keep trying it and let you know what I think. I did want to give one comparison. I've been kind of thinking about what this reminded me of today, and okay, this is kind of out there, but the texture of this reminds me, or this concealer in general, reminds me of a cross between NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer and Kosas Revealer Concealer. The texture more so kind of reminds me of NARS because it's a little bit more of a whipped texture. That's what I was saying earlier when I was saying I thought it was a little bit thicker than I was expecting it to be. But it's not quite as whipped as the NARS. It still spreads like the Kosas concealer, and I would kind of equate the coverage to the Kosas concealer also. It's just more of a natural concealer in my opinion. So if you are familiar with either of those, I think this is kind of a combination of the two, if that helps you. But like I said, I will keep trying it. I'd like to use this all over my face at some point and see what I think as well. But I will obviously keep you guys updated in future videos. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure to let me know if you're interested in this concealer. I believe it is now just on Charlotte Tilbury's website, but I know it's coming to Sephora soon, most likely in the next few days. But I will list and link it below for you, as well as everything else that I'm wearing today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. If you're new, I hope you'll subscribe and follow me over on Instagram at simply.blair and TikTok simply.blair1, and I will see you next time. Remember, simply be you. Bye.
Sunday morning, waking up with